The characteristics of a true leader, in my opinion, should be number one, humility, but humility with also self-confidence. I think one of the other characteristics should be to follow the golden rule. So do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And then I think the third characteristic is really to lead by example. I think that if you're going to ask others to follow you, then you should definitely set the example. I think the one word that describes me is humble. And the reason I say that is because that's what others have expressed to me. You know, I truly believe that the things that I've been able to accomplish, I've been able to accomplish because of, number one, the help of others, but number two, my tendency to be a perfectionist. Results-driven, willing to assist and help others, always looking out for those who are less fortunate, particularly as it relates to patient care. So I think they would probably use those types of sentences and terms to describe me. Who has had the greatest impact on my life would have to be my parents, because they really set the example for me. They were both in education, so they stressed education, but they also stressed helping others. So it wasn't just always about me achieving, but how can I achieve and also help others while I'm doing that. But definitely their focus on education and giving back to the community, I mean, in those early years of my life, I would say that they had the greatest impact. No doubt about it. The event in my life that helped me to actually look forward to helping others and looking for ways to help others, I would probably say it was just growing up in Tallahassee and seeing the various ways that my relatives lived and some of the struggles that they had. So, for instance, my grandparents didn't have very much education. I think my grandmother maybe made it to the 3rd grade. But just her hard work and her tenacity and the way my parents and others in the community, you know, helped her, that had a big impact on me, because none of us are successful and make it alone. And so I think that was the initial impact that led me into community service. I think the other piece of it, I can remember when I was about 13 or 14, my father, who was an instructor at Tallahassee Community College, actually would go out to the facility in Chattahoochee, which is where some of the criminals who actually had mental behavioral problems were institutionalized. And I would go with him, and he would actually teach them math. And so that also had a really big impact on me, to think about, you know, those who are really vulnerable and may not be able to experience some of the things that others, like myself, can experience. Well, I think it's important for everyone to give back, because that's really the way we progress as a society. I mean, if we're not willing to give a piece of what we have, a piece of who we are to others, then really what's the meaning of our life? I mean, if at the end of my life I haven't invested in others and they haven't then used that investment to invest in others, I mean, why are we here? Are we here just to live our lives solely for ourselves? If you ask me that question, I would say no. I mean, I think we are here to spread what we know, to give the knowledge that we have to others, but also to keep that thread going. I don't believe that life should just stop with me and what I was able to gain for myself. I really do think it's about us moving that forward in our families, but also in our communities. I think that's important just for the advancement of our society. Having good health means being able to have what matters most to me. I think that, as a physician and other healthcare givers, we should always pause to say, what does this individual, what does this patient, what does this person truly want? Obviously, when I see patients, I have in my mind what I think is best for the patient, what kind of treatment I think they need. But sometimes I'm surprised when I ask, particularly patients that are dealing with chronic health problems, what is it that you want the most? And I'll never forget the patient that I had at the VA hospital in Roanoke, Virginia. He passed many years ago, but he had end-stage heart failure, and he was in and out of the hospital. Every other week he was being admitted, and finally, without me asking, he said, the thing that I really want most is to take my son to the Rocky Mountains. And I didn't ask the question, he volunteered it, but it was really a very meaningful lesson for me. And he did end up going to the Rocky Mountains and taking his grandson, and he brought back petrified wood for me. And that actually sits on my desk, as a reminder to ask the question. I would have to say Arthur Ashe. And the reason is because I was a big tennis fan. My father played tennis, I played tennis, my children played tennis, and what Arthur Ashe was able to achieve in tennis, I think, was just amazing. And then the thing that caused him to expire and leave this earth, I think, it left a tremendous impact in the way that we deal with HIV and AIDS. I mean, and he dealt with it in such a courageous way, and it was very early in the history of AIDS for us. So I would say that it's Arthur Ashe. The model that Volunteers in Medicine has, what makes it different is that it's concentrated on the working uninsured. And I think so many times that's a population that really goes unnoticed. So they're working, but they don't have the means to really afford insurance. And what happens with those individuals? So many of our models are geared towards either the uninsured or the underinsured, but not necessarily the working uninsured. And I think it's so important that we don't forget we actually have that population. The other thing about Volunteers in Medicine and the model that they've set up is that it's not just primary care based. They also have specialists that come and give care to the patients. Many of the other clinics are really geared more towards primary care, and then we end up having a gap as it relates to care that needs to be delivered by the specialists. One thing that my friends probably don't know about me is that they know that I like to run, but I don't think they realize that I like to run without listening to any music. And the reason I do that is because not only does running help me to relax and relieve the pressures of day-to-day work, but it also gives me time to contemplate. So just the rhythm of my feet hitting the sidewalk or the road, and listening to the birds and not being distracted from being able to view the trees and the sunshine. I mean, that I can't even tell you how much I value that. And so I enjoy running without having any music. What makes Dr. Redmon excited are many things. I'm excited about spending time with my spouse. I'm excited about spending time with my children and my niece. And I'm excited about helping others and the relationships that I can develop one-on-one. I am a strong introvert, despite what people may think. I'm very introverted, and so when it's a big group, I can deal with that, but I really, really love having the one-on-one relationships.